cyclical nature of the cosmos. They detail the movements of the stars not as signs of impending apocalypse, but as the intricate workings of Sophia's grand design. These texts were marginalized precisely because they contradicted the linear, patriarchal narrative of conquest and final judgment, offering instead a vision of continuous, maternal renewal. 34. The conflict between patriarchy and matriarchy in antiquity was not merely a struggle for political control. It was a fundamental clash of cosmological paradigms. The patriarchal model demanded a universe of stark divisions: heaven and earth, spirit and matter, male and female, with the former always dominating the latter. The matriarchal model, represented by the Kendakes and the suppressed strata of Judean literature, viewed the universe as a unified, interconnected organism, where spirit and matter were completely intertwined, and the divine was immanent in the physical world. The iron shaft is the physical manifestation of this conflict, a tool of earth magic claimed by the priests of the sky. 35. To fully decipher the ascending parables, we must recognize the profound difference between a patriarchal ascent and a matriarchal ascent. In the patriarchal model, ascent is an escape from the flawed, physical earth to a perfect, abstract heaven. It requires leaving the maternal behind. In the matriarchal model, ascent is a rising up to meet the protective firmament, an expansion of consciousness that remains entirely within the enclosed, safe womb of the cosmos. It is an ascent that honors the earth, drawing its magnetic, metallic power upward to align with the cyclical rhythms of the stars, as mapped by the ancient queens of Kush. 36. The rebranding of the Kendake maps was a deliberate act of historical erasure. By replacing the maternal cosmos with a paternal battleground, the architects of patriarchy severed the psychological and spiritual roots that connected humanity to the earth. The resulting sense of exile and alienation became the defining characteristic of the patriarchal era, driving endless cycles of conquest and environmental destruction. The restoration of the firmament as a matriarchal refuge is not merely an academic exercise in ancient history. It is a vital step toward healing this deep, historical trauma and realigning human society with the sustaining forces of the planet. 37. The magnetic pull of the iron shaft is a constant reminder of this necessary realignment. Just as the compass needle unerringly seeks the magnetic pole, the human spirit is instinctively drawn toward the nurturing, protective presence of the maternal divine. The patriarchal structures of law and judgment may attempt to redirect this orientation, but the fundamental magnetic resonance of the earth cannot be altered. The ascending parables, when stripped of their patriarchal gloss, reveal a clear path back to the matriarchal source, a journey of integration and healing that utilizes the heavy iron realities of the physical world. 38. The history of the Kendakes proves that a society built upon these matriarchal maps is not only possible, but capable of achieving immense stability and prosperity. Their civilization endured for centuries, resisting the expansionist pressures of the greatest patriarchal empires of antiquity. They maintained their independence not through endless warfare, but through a profound integration with the natural cycles of their environment, and a steadfast commitment to the maternal principles of governance and cosmology. Their legacy is a testament to the enduring power of the firmament as a practical, lived reality of protection and renewal. 39. In Judean literary symbolism, the tension between these two models remains a central, driving force. The texts constantly oscillate between the harsh, punitive dictates of the patriarchal father god and the enduring, merciful presence of the maternal Shekinah. The iron shaft of Moses is caught in this crossfire, serving both as an instrument of divine wrath and a conduit for miraculous, life-saving intervention. By carefully untangling these narrative threads, we can isolate the original, matriarchal core of the story, revealing a cosmology where the physical weight of iron is entirely compatible with spiritual elevation and healing. 40. The physical destruction of the bronze serpent by Hezekiah was a pivotal moment in the suppression of this matriarchal core. By destroying the physical object, the patriarchal authorities attempted to sever the tangible link to the older, earth-based practices. They replaced the localized, magnetic power of the iron shaft with the centralized, abstract authority of the temple scroll. However, the memory of the serpent and the rod could not be entirely eradicated. It survived in the linguistic structure of the texts, in the hidden books of the Apocrypha, and in the enduring historical legacy of the matriarchal kingdoms to the south. 41. Deciphering the ascending and magnetic parables requires a complete re-evaluation of the historical events recorded in the ancient texts. We must read between the lines of the patriarchal narratives, searching for the suppressed voices of the Kendakes and the enduring presence of the Shekinah. We must recognize the firmament not as a barrier to be pierced, but as a canopy to be revered. We must understand the iron shaft not as a weapon of conquest, but as a tool of alignment, a massive compass needle pointing humanity back toward the maternal center of the cosmos. 42. The true ascent, therefore, is an ascent of awareness. It is the realization that the earth is not a place of exile, but a sacred, magnetic core, enclosed within the protective womb of the firmament. The parables teach us to look upward not to escape, but to comprehend the vastness of this maternal architecture. The iron and the bronze, the heavy metals of the earth, are elevated as symbols of this integrated cosmology, demonstrating that the material world is fully capable of bearing the weight of the divine. The separation of heaven and earth is a patriarchal construct. Their unity is a matriarchal reality. 43. The Kendakes understood this unity implicitly. Their maps were diagrams of connection, tracing the lines of force that bind the stars to the soil. When the patriarchal scribes rebranded these maps, they broke these lines of connection, isolating humanity within a rigid, hierarchical cosmos. Reclaiming the firmament as a matriarchal refuge involves repairing these broken lines, restoring the magnetic flow between the earthly mother and the celestial mother. It is a process of historical and linguistic archaeology, digging through centuries of patriarchal redaction to uncover the original, balanced architecture of the universe. 44. The Apocrypha remains the most vital tool in this archaeological endeavor. These texts, preserved on the margins of canonical authority, contain the clearest echoes of the older, maternal cosmology. They speak of Sophia, the feminine wisdom who orders the stars and sustains the earth, providing a direct counter-narrative to the sole male creator of the patriarchal texts. By integrating the wisdom of the Apocrypha with the historical reality of the Kendakes, we can begin to reconstruct a complete picture of the ancient matriarchal maps, entirely independent of the patriarchal framework that sought to destroy them. 45. The iron shaft of Moses, stripped of its later militaristic associations, stands as the central pillar of this reconstructed cosmology. It is the physical manifestation of the magnetic parable, the heavy, undeniable reality of the earth reaching up to touch the sky. It represents the localized, tangible power of the matriarchal divine, a power that heals through the application of physical elements rather than abstract laws. The ascent of the bronze serpent is the ultimate expression of this localized power, a highly visible, undeniable demonstration of earth magic operating within the protective enclosure of the firmament. 46. The ultimate failure of the patriarchal rebranding is evident in the enduring human hunger for this maternal connection. Despite centuries of theological conditioning, the instinctive pull toward the nurturing, cyclical cosmology of the Kendakes remains unbroken. The firmament continues to be perceived, on a deep psychological level, as a protective canopy, rather than a rigid barrier. The magnetic forces of the earth continue to draw humanity toward a physical, grounded understanding of the divine, resisting the constant pull toward the abstract and the distant. The original maps, though overwritten, are still legible to those who know how to read the magnetic signatures. 47. The history of Judea and the surrounding regions must be rewritten to acknowledge the profound impact of this cosmological shift. The transition from matriarchy to patriarchy was not a natural progression, but a violent, deliberate ideological conquest. The suppression of the Kendake maps and the reauthoring of the firmament were central strategies in this conquest, designed to legitimize a new, hierarchical social order based on exclusion and martial dominance. Recognizing this historical reality is the first step toward dismantling the legacy of this patriarchal dominance and restoring the balanced, maternal cosmology that preceded it. 48. The deciphering of the magnetic and ascending parables is the culmination of this restorative work. It allows us to reclaim the core narratives of the ancient texts, freeing them from the restrictive interpretations of the patriarchal priesthood. We can finally understand the iron shaft, not as an instrument of divine punishment, but as a supreme tool of navigation and healing. We can see the firmament not as the floor of a heavenly throne room, but as the ceiling of our shared, sacred home. The parables, once decoded, become powerful instruments of historical reclamation and spiritual liberation. 49. This vast literary and historical realignment ultimately brings us back to the heavy, iron reality of the present moment. The magnetic pull of the ancient matriarchal cosmos is not merely a historical curiosity. It is a vital, active force that can guide humanity through its current crises of alienation and environmental destruction. By embracing the protective, nurturing cosmology of the firmament and acknowledging the deep, physical connection between the earth and the sky, we can begin to reconstruct a society based on the ancient, balanced wisdom of the Kendakes. The map to this future is written in the stars, preserved in the earth, and waiting to be read. 50. The standard is raised, the iron shaft stands firmly planted in the soil, and the compass needle points unerringly toward the maternal center. The parables have been deciphered, stripped of their patriarchal constraints, and restored to their original magnetic resonance. The firmament spans overhead, a vast, undeniable refuge of cyclical renewal and universal protection. The legacy of the matriarchs, encoded in biblical Hebrew and the hidden books of the Apocrypha, stands fully revealed, offering a profound, historically grounded alternative to the fragmented narratives of the patriarchal past. The ascent is complete, firmly anchored in the enduring weight of